So there is a helicopter outside. You might hear the rotors. There's also, yes, that is a shooting range. So I've got government intervention in two ways: police force, municipal, and who knows who's flying that chopper. It sounds like a war zone. I am safe here in Newington, Connecticut. This is where I'm quarantined. My office. I do go home for showers. And I want to do page 2 of the suggestions for the libertarian nominee to have in her or his cabinet or judicial positions. Before I hit page 2, a comment from page 1, because yes, I have created some positions, deserving positions. 2 of them are hand in hand: secretary for removing bad laws and secretary for not enforcing bad federal regulations. So this is already underway, not officially, but with compilations that, should the LP get power, congressional majority or presidential, these come into play really fast. Okay, I've been making a minor compilation, but probably a whole posse of LP people, maybe armed with Reason magazine. I mean, they've been compiling injustices from the government. That's where most injustice comes from, but anyway, for like 50 years. So Reason plus contributions from every one of us, okay? People who just have their eyes open to unfair, bad laws. And every citizen who's been wronged by the law could contribute to this. Now, that's where libertarians and ordinary citizens, we have a lot in common, don't we? How many people have been wronged by a federal or state or municipal agency? How many people should be voting libertarian? Libertarians are the party that would be removing unjust laws, removing unconstitutional laws, not enforcing, if not removing, regulations that are not properly there in the first place. We're the party that removes. It's the Democrats and the Republicans that create more and more laws, and we need to remind people, especially those who found themselves on the wrong end of an injustice, that their parties put them there. Presidents who say that they will reform, they don't. Regulations grew under Ronald Reagan, grew more under George Bush 41, grew more under Bush 43, and have grown more even under Donald Trump. What good is promises from Republicans that want to reduce? And as for the Democrats who tend to want to work with and make laws better, well, it doesn't work. Has our government provided better administration in your lifetimes? Okay, with that, page 2. And in some places, I have 3 occupants for a position. It's the philosophy that a cabinet level position is not just a 40-hour-a-week job. It deserves to be 24/7 by somebody's. Okay, that might be 3, 4, or 5 secretaries who share duties. It should be a wide list, but not deep, because cabinets, except for maybe 3 departments, should be fewer than 100 people. So if you hear me with only 1 person named, it is a cabinet position that should be headed for extinction, hopefully soon. If there's 3 or more, then we make them better by having really good people. So first up, alphabetically, agriculture, that would be Laura Ebke or maybe Ben Sass. Commerce, I've skipped Attorney General because I have that among the 4 essential cabinet positions, the original 4 that Washington created in the 1790s. So we skip to commerce, recent creation and deserves to go away. Candace Owens could make that happen, maybe Mark Cuban. Notice, neither of them are politicians. Don't put anything that is slated for extinction in the hands of a politician, because that's how they get gratification and more power. They're not going to extinguish an agency, not alone. Education is one that I don't think should be extinguished. it should be run incredibly differently. And three that I think could be co-secretaries. How about Alan Page, formerly of the Minnesota Vikings and then a judge for the last 30 years. Andre Agassi, the second greatest tennis player of my lifetime. Okay, there is maybe no better tennis than Andre's Wimbledon 1992. What may come better, Jimmy Connors from almost any match in the 70s and 80s. Oh, and we should have Michelle Malkin. She is eloquent, passionate, real spark plug, good for education. Next, energy. Pick one. Aaron Lewis is a local political guy and good guy. Nick Gillespie, tremendous. HUD, it should be destroyed, okay? But how about a nice person to help it go away? How about Oprah Winfrey? Next, Health and Human Services, a colossally large department that should be destroyed, but it's going to have to be really slow because there's so many contracts that have to be unwound, so many expectations. It's going to be hard to do that in just a year. But three and out, that's very reasonable. So how about one of my favorite former Democrats, Brandon Straka? If you don't know him or his walk away movement, hashtag walk away. He left the party because of its ridiculousness, and he was a big fervent advocate before, and now he's on the other end. Accompanying him, Christina Tobin, Jimmy Wales. Homeland Security should be merged into the Defense Department, which it once had. It's a bloated and bad department. Alicia Matson, you can take care of that. Number 8, IRS. Now, you do need an IRS, okay, as long as there's any revenue. You don't need it to come in the unfair fashion that you've had for the last 110 years. But you do need an IRS of some sort. It needs to be done fairly and efficiently. So I'm torn here. People from the Democrat establishment will not be fair and will not be efficient. But maybe as an icon of how bad they are, putting one of them in a prominent position called IRS chief might show how bad the whole system is. So my nominee, Bernie Sanders. Okay, he does have integrity. I don't think he'd be a cheater like Lois Lerner was. And we'll watch him carefully. All right, next up, Interior Department. Austin Peterson, Deneen Borelli, Jessica Paxton, Jessica of the New Hampshire Free State Alliance. Labor Secretary, David Horowitz, also another prominent liberal who went the other way and is a fierce free market guy. Transportation, one who's traveled an awful lot, opined a little, and I admire her, Venus Williams. Serena would be on this list too, but she's got some good tennis still to play. Veterans Affairs. Lots of vets who could fill this role. Dan Crenshaw has some telegenic heft right now. Joni Ernst, legislative heft in my mind. Tulsi Gabbard would probably be my favorite of the three, but again, it's a three-part department. I would probably put it back into the Defense Department, but for 3 years, let's have it run well. 3 good people that could run that. Now, why do I, who so fervently want third-party assent and the destruction of the 2 big parties, or at least the hegemony that they have, why nominate a single Democrat or a single Republican? I believe in expansion of people, okay? We're not going to eliminate the humans who occupy Republican and Democrat seats. We might convert them. In the process, though, we, I think, elevate ourselves by wooing them publicly, even if they just reject our proposals as libertarians. The world sees we are open. We are the party of unity. We don't change our principles, though. It does not mean because a Bernie Sanders is named by one of our prominent people that that person has changed one iota. Principles stay intact. And I will remind people that the Democrat Party and the Republican Party is where the voters are. Okay? Independents too. I recognize independents in most states become the largest, quote, party. But they are there in such huge numbers, Democrats in the Northeast for sure, that we should play to them. Look, a good example, who ran as a liberty-minded Democrat in a field for the March 3rd Super Tuesday primary of 20 pretty prominent people, okay? Mark Stewart was on the ballot just south of Sanders. It went Sanders, Stewart, Steyer. I got 3,000 votes in California, okay? Now, that 3,000 is a decent number of Democrats willing to vote for a libertarian and not somebody with money. I didn't even campaign there. Not somebody with eloquence. I certainly don't have it like many of the others. These are principled enough people to say, we're going off the board. We should do the same and follow. All right, 3 more. BIA chief. I think it's an important department because it has to do with integrating people who have been on the outs because of bad policy over and over and over again. So for at least 3 years, I think the Bureau of Indian Affairs is worthy. You could be saving lives. So for that, Ben Chavis, Ben Nighthorse Campbell, and Justice Clarence Thomas, the best justice of my lifetime, they, I think, would do a good job. Economic advisors, don't need it, but for a few months, Charles Payne. EPA needed to be reformed, and interestingly, I actually feel that environmental protection is deserving of a federal authority. Now, it doesn't have it right now. People should recognize that the EPA has zero authority under the current system. Article 1 does not allow Congress or the executive to be taking people's property for environmental causes. I think maybe that should change. And the reason is we all have property rights in the air we breathe and the water we drink. But we have an inability to protect those rights. They are, pollution is not segmented over a clean area. The science is difficult to understand and very costly if an individual wanted to bring suit. Big corporations tend to be the defendants in such suits, so they're armed in an unfair judicial system to win against those of us who actually really suffer their predations. So it is one of the few areas where I think government has a proper role. We don't have a constitutional authority yet, but this is one of the few worthy amendments. Countries that have privatized a lot of environmental protection, it seems to be helping in Ireland and New Zealand, but it should be at least in play that this document potentially gets amended. Until it does, though, our EPA should be slated for extinction. 3 more, and then I'm done. OMB, Mr. Bishop Henchman. SBA, let's keep it. Barbara Corcoran, Colin McEnroe, Kristen Tate. I think they would all do a good job in promoting small over big. SBA, if done right, would be one that makes only sensible regulations, and they would be localized, not federalized, because they can't do it at a federal level, and put them on a closer to even playing field with the big corporations that right now have this extra power. It's control of our legislatures because they have the ability to bribe. That is what they do when they're lobbying. And they keep that ability by making regulations so that little businesses just can't afford an extra 3-person staff just to deal with lobbyists. So it keeps big, it protects them in ways they shouldn't. UN ambassador. I think we should pull out of the UN pretty quickly. But for a few months, Karen Ann Harlos. She's done a great job in every realm that I've seen her. Finally, U.S. Trade Representative. Now, I am going to give you a 2-word mantra that each of these representatives should carry. So I think the department should stay. It should be incredibly minimal. And on the lips of these 3, Catherine Mangu Ward, Meg Whitman, Peter Robinson, should be the phrase, just trade. No negotiation, we're just going to trade. And if some other country wants to dump, we'll get cheap stuff. Fine. If some other country wants managed trade, we say no. We are going to just plain trade. We know it's economically better for us. If you decide you want to starve your own people of commerce, that is your business, you fiends. Part 4 next.